Hello, Zoom fan. Get it together, Zoom fan. 1 second. Let me get this one going.
Hey, boy.
So I'm interested to see how these come out. So I'm going to be gone from, this afternoon till Saturday night. So I'm going to ask for, my boys to do some flipping. I'm going to Virginia to see my father for his birthday, which is very cool because if you remember last year, we didn't know he was going to have another birthday. So we are happy about that. Is this where it's supposed to be? I don't know. Can y'all see that? I can never tell which way. This thing does not tell me what's doing. Okay. Hopefully now you can see the room. Oh, no, you can't. You can only see this other one. Okay, I'll figure that out in a minute. Can y'all see the room? Those of you that are Zooming, takes me a minute to get it. They changed all of the prompts on the thing, so it's not the same. All right, so let's go ahead and roll. Those of you that are who have I got? Shannon and Sydney and who I have? Shannon. Oh gosh, Shannon and Sydney. Okay. Well, y'all will you're not in there yet. Come on, there you go. Sid, will you guys let me know if you can see the room? I can't tell on my iPad or not. All right, let's go. I don't know if you care to see the room, but you might. Say what?
Are you gonna let Shannon in?
She should be in. Is she not in? Well, let her in. She just didn't. Come on, Shannon. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm hitting the button and you can go. There we go. Okay. You guys that are on Zoom, let me know if you can see the room. I've got the iPad up, but sometimes it doesn't show me what it's supposed to be showing. Okay, let's go, gang. All right, we have a lot to cover today because we're covering 2 systems. I'm gonna move this down here for now. Oh, they're chatting with me and telling me, can they see the room? Yay, you can see the room. Thank you. Okay. So we're gonna start with the endocrine system and then we're gonna move on to the reproductive system. Fun day. Let me move my, these guys didn't want their money, I guess. Let me move my new names up for y'all. Cole, Michael, do that later. We're in this class now. Good, good, excellent. All right, so there we go. So at the end of lab, what we did where we got our little sterile swabs and we went around and wiped stuff and now we have put it in a little nutrient agar place and stuck it in the incubator. So I'm curious to see how it's gonna look next week. I'm gonna ask Cole and Drew to rotate the stacks while I'm gone because sometimes it's hotter towards the top and cooler at the bottom of the incubator. It would be better if we had a more consistent temperature because I had to make an incubator because they're expensive. So that's that. Now, first things first, you guys, there's a lot due over the next few weeks. Pay attention. You've got next week in class, I need your model body project. If you haven't already turned it in, that means your booklet and your big model. Okay, don't forget to include the booklet too. Like Cole, I think you put your model in, but I don't see your booklet, or was it you? One of you. Anyway, okay, make sure you put your booklet in there too. There's a little box over there you can stick them in. Be sure your name's on them or I won't know whose body that is because, you know, inside we all look pretty similar. So next week in class, you're gonna turn that in. You're gonna turn in lab 32, which you just did with the little bob or whatnot, the negative feedback loop, and you're going to turn in unit 8 test, which is open now. It opened at noon. So I do have your test study topics at the end of this lesson for you guys to review. Do me one favor here, Alex. I'm trying to keep this blanket over this rough spot right here that got bare until I can get a freaking upholsterer to come fix it for me. Which I'm probably gonna do after you guys are gone because they want to take the whole cushion away, which means there'll be nowhere for you to sit. Okay. The 15th, which is a Sunday. It's not this Sunday, the next Sunday. You need to upload your written research paper to Teacher Ease by 11:59 p.m. Some of you have not chosen your topics. I think there are like 5 of you. That's not good, not cool. You need to choose your topics. Some of you made hotkeys because the word was so weird. That was funny. That was interesting. So anyway, Be sure that you get that to me. And you got my, okay, good. All right, Monday, not a Tuesday, Monday is when any assignments that are overdue are due by 8 a.m. on Monday, or it's a zero. And I would do something like, if you're emailing it to me, I would put in the topic, like late assignment turned in, put it so I see it and I know what it is and I don't miss it, okay? Because there will be no exceptions to these zeros because there is no more time. There's no way for me to wait any longer because class is over in 2 days. So it's then or never. And then on the 17th, we're going to complete the final exam in class. I'm going to get your final exam study packet to you, hopefully within the next 2 days. It's been an insane 2 weeks for me. I'm going to actually work on it on the plane today. That's my plan. Exciting. Okay. And then you're going to do your final project presentations. I will probably draw at random, like put your names in a little bucket and draw at random, except I know 2 that asked permission to go back to back because their topics are kind of related. All right, don't forget there'll be $10 for pizza and cupcakes, and we might go to the pool, weather permitting, lots of other things. Technically, if I bring more than 3 people, I'm supposed to get lifeguards, this whole thing, but they're usually not there in the middle of the day. No promises, we'll see when we get closer. So we're gonna start now, endocrine system. So endocrine system, we're gonna move through kind of quickly because we have a lot to cover. So here we go. I got the coins out. Function, endocrine system. The function of the endocrine system is to produce chemical messengers called what? Alex went first.
Hormones.
Hormones. That's right. These are our chemical messengers. All right. And they come from glands and they regulate certain body activities. Oh, they regulate just about everything. And these are some examples of endocrine system glands within your body. And we're going to go over a lot of those kind of a little more detail. So hormones is our answer. So wait till I ask before you throw your hand. So hormones are chemical substances that act like messenger molecules in the body. And after being made in one part of the body, they travel to another part of the body so that they can do whatever work. So they act on specific cells that we call target cells. And the other cells are going to ignore the messages. So anybody know what this one is? Small hormone-like substances secreted by cells. They call them local hormones. Anybody know? So these are going to be prostaglandins. So prostaglandins are local hormones. They don't go far. They don't travel through the whole body. So keep in mind this target cell thing. This is important because, say, for example, you get suddenly frightened. You're walking down a path and there's a bear. Okay, you're going to have a huge rush of adrenaline, right? But adrenaline is not going to act on the part of your brain that helps you sleep. That would be bad. It's going to act on target cells, the ones that are going to increase your heart rate, increase your respiration, make your muscles work faster, all of that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind as we go along. So these prostaglandins, local hormones, they work just in the area where they are. And steroid versus non-steroid. So steroid hormones are produced from a lipid, which is what's a lipid? It's a fat, right? They're produced from a lipid called cholesterol. You guys know there's multiple kinds of cholesterol, right? HDL and LDL and yeah. And then non-steroid hormones include proteins, small peptides, and modified amino acids. So some of these are sort of lipid-based where others are not. That's the basic concept here. So you have steroid versus non-steroid. This one right here is testosterone, actually. That's what he looks like. So glands. All right, what are glands? So glands are an organ that will secrete a particular chemical substance, and it can be used in the body or go out into the surroundings. So you have over 40 glands in your body, endocrine and exocrine. So somebody tell me the difference, endocrine and exocrine. Wait, Michael.
Exocrine secretes outside the body, endocrine secretes inside.
You got it. There's one kind of weirdish exception to that. You know?
Vein or artery exception.
No, kind of. So the glands that secrete into your digestive system are exocrine glands, because if you think about the alimentary canal, you're kind of like a tube turned that you can if you could turn yourself inside out the other way around, that's the outside of you sort of in a way. Remember when we talked about neurulation and that neural tube formation? I need to find one of these old toys, but we used to have these old toys. It was like it would look like a tube, but it was like a sheath filled with water. You know what I mean? Just squeeze it and it would run from you like a worm. Yeah, that's kind of how your body is really. So your digestive system, like it's epithelial cells, it has epithelial cells because it comes in contact with the outside. So your endocrine glands, these are your tube-like structures that secrete directly exocrine out of the body or into the digestive system. Anybody want to give me an example of an exocrine gland? Michael, give me one. Sweat. James, give me one. Tears. Good. Those are great examples. Okay. So tears, sweat, bile. Okay. So your endocrine glands are going to release into your blood. You want to give me an example?
Adrenal gland.
Adrenal. Anything else? Anybody else have one? Mammary would be exocrine. That's a good guess though. All right. Okay. So pituitary, adrenal, thyroid. All right. So look right here. We got the hypothalamus. We got your little like pituitary, all these little tiny things that are in your brain. These are all super duper important things. Ooh, sun just went behind a cloud, didn't it? That's weird. So how is the endocrine system controlled? Your hypothalamus. This is your big daddy, major master gland, okay? This is the guy who pretty much tells everything else what to do. Like your brain talks to your nervous system, your hypothalamus talks to your endocrine system. So it controls your whole hormone system, releases hormones to another part of your brain called the pituitary. That's this dude, little guy. And that sends your hormones out to different organs. So this maintains your daily physiological cycles. Like, do you sleep at broad daylight or do you sleep when it's dark? Typically dark, right? Some people have a certain time of day when they're just more tired than other times of day. There's that. Some people use the bathroom almost every day at roughly the same time. These are all physiological cycles. Anything that's a cycle throughout your day keeps your day kind of normal. Your appetite too. When are you hungry? When are you not hungry? It manages sexual behavior. So this has to do with, if you've heard the term libido, that's basically like sexual urge, like sexual drive. And when we get into the reproductive system in a minute, you'll notice that other hormones that interact with sexual behavior, they tend to cycle in females because there is a reproductive cycle, whereas in males, it's more of a steady thing. So yeah, that's why if you watch like mating season for animals, the females are picky and choosy and the males are always chasing them around, which is kind of what happens in human beings too. So yeah. So it also regulates emotional responses. This is everything from, do I need to kick the adrenal glands in because there's a bear on the path and I'm terrified? Or am I sad? Am I happy? All these things. And body temperature. Are you somebody who's always cold? Are you somebody who's always hot? Do you have an infection and require a fever? Your immune system is going to talk to your hypothalamus. Your hypothalamus is going to talk to other parts of your body. You'll heat right up. So again, some examples. You got your little pineal gland that's here on the back of your hypothalamus area. And your pituitary is this little dude, and then your hypothalamus. You have your thyroid. Remember we talked last week when you go to the doctor, they tend to run their hands here, check your glands, and then they go right here, and what do they say? You know? Swallow, coughs for hernias, but they say swallow. They're feeling your thyroid gland. Your thyroid is particularly important because does anybody know what your thyroid manages?
Growth, I believe.
You mean the thymus?
No, I mean the thyroid right here. Did I point to the thymus? Sorry, thyroid right here. You know?
Wait, I know.
You should know because you killed mine.
Yeah, I know.
It manages your metabolism. It's basically how fast or slow is your motor running. So some people have a particularly high metabolism. Other people have hypothyroidism. If you've heard of that, it's really not uncommon. Sometimes it's called Hashimoto's disease, but it's when your thyroid is just too slow. It's not producing. No, but here, so I'm going to tell you why. So there are certain times when your thyroid is going to intentionally slow your metabolism. One of them is pregnancy. If you're eating and you have a high metabolism, you're going to burn calories fast. But if you're pregnant, you don't want to do that. You want to burn those calories more slowly because you want to have time for them to get to the baby. You need to put on necessary weight. The baby needs to put on necessary weight. The calories are going to translate into weight, right? So it will slow your whole metabolism down. And it will continue to be slower. I don't know what that is. It will continue to be slower during the period about a year postpartum. So about a year after birth, it'll be slow. And that's also because that's typically when breastfeeding occurs. So that helps you keep extra calories, slow everything down. I wonder if that's the lawnmower guy. Anyway, if after a year, so your baby's a year old, your thyroid hasn't picked back up, they consider it damaged or it just unable to kick back in. So that's what happened to mine. And it's not uncommon at all. You draw blood. Cole, can you pop the microwave door so it stops doing that? Oz, hey Oz, chill out. So anyway, thank you. It can slow down and stay slowed down. And when that happens, it's fixable. There's just medication you have to stay on and not a big deal. But if you get low thyroid, you can lose your hair, you can gain weight, be really sluggish and sleepy all the time. And it can also affect fertility. It can reduce fertility if your thyroid is particularly low. So it's a good thing mine's caught because little dude may not be here without it. Who knows? So anybody want to take some guesses here? We have glands, the hormones they produce, target organs, and function. Anybody want to guess where your melatonin is going to come from? The hypothalamus is your guess. Anybody else have a guess? I'll give the coin to whoever's right.
Pituitary?
Pituitary. Let's see. Nobody wins. It's pineal. Okay. So this does FSH, LH. These are both part of reproductive, female specifically. ADH, growth hormone, oxytocin, and prolactin. Prolactin is what produces milk for milk production, and oxytocin, well, it does lots of things, but in particular, it works with contractions. Yeah.
Pituitary.
Pituitary, he says. Anybody else have another guess? Pituitary, Alex. Coin for Alex. All right. Now, what do you suppose produces thyroxine? Works on the liver, Bailey. Thyroid, Bailey gets one. All right, cool. Now, adrenaline and cortisol. Got stuck in her head.
It's so close.
Adrenal glands. She got it. It's like Piper's like, wait, what happened? So then insulin, James. Pancreas, yeah. The pancreas is going to do your insulin. What's insulin for? Yeah, keep your blood sugar where it should be, whether it needs to be higher or lower.
What the lab is about today.
Yep. All right. How about estrogen and progesterone? Where is that going to be produced? Oh no, if you know it, you're good.
I don't think I have one.
Anybody? Okay, that's ovaries. Ovaries are going to produce estrogen, progesterone.
That makes sense.
Target is going to be the uterus. And then what is going to produce testosterone? Say it out loud. There you go, testes. All right, Cole gets a coin finally. Yes. Okay. Now, also testosterone can come from other places in lower amounts because obviously women do have some degree of testosterone in their bodies, and we're not walking around with a pair of testes because that would be confusing. All right. So these are diagrams of how some of these particular secretions are produced, either internally or externally. Now, you guys did negative feedback loop today in lab, and insulin and pancreas is an excellent human body example of negative feedback. Mammary glands are an excellent example of positive feedback. Reason is because the more your baby suckles, the more milk you produce, right? So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is how you can have a mother produce enough milk for a newborn and a 12-month-old. Clearly, they're going to eat different amounts. Yes.
I remember in the office that Kevin played a prank. That is real. I don't know how real that is, but I remember he went up to Pam and started crying and making baby noises.
Oh yes, that is absolutely a thing. So what you're talking about is called letdown. So there are little tiny muscles in here around the mammary glands that will relax or contract depending on where they are, that'll allow the milk to flow out. And yes, a stimulus that can cause letdown is a baby crying, whether it's your baby or some other baby. So a mother that is currently lactating and breastfeeding could be in Kroger and her baby's at home with daddy and another baby's crying, and she can start having milk just pouring on out because that's what happens. And that's an interesting biological function. I mean, that's what should happen. Baby cries, oh, milk. That's exactly, it makes perfect sense. And these are just some diagrams of how some particular glands are shaped. I particularly like this one. It's kind of cool. It looks like playing card clubs to me, Michael, right? So they all have different shapes and different functions. So now we get to my favorite part. Now we're going to the reproductive system. See all these people? Is this how you're going to look? Well, let me tell you. Okay, this is my favorite system and my favorite favorite lesson to teach. Why? Okay. First, I find it super fascinating. So fascinating that I did my college senior research project on a particular reproductive habit. I actually try, and it's in there. I think I put it in the pub in case anybody wanted to read it. So no, not quite. So my college research project was on trying to enhance the sexual motivation of female mice, basically increase their libido, make them more receptive to male mice. Because, and this is prior to all the big pharma companies coming out with Viagra and Cialis and all of those things that are for, male sexual enhancement or increasing male libido, all that kind of stuff, and their motivation. That even wasn't on the market yet. And there certainly wasn't anything geared towards human females. So I wanted to see if the same drug they used on men at the time could be used in female mice and produce a similar response, or at least make them more receptive to the male mice. So I loved this because the medication at the time, the only now there are all these ED, erectile dysfunction meds, they're all over TV every time you look. The only one they had at the time was called yohimbine. And so I got a note from my professor that was overseeing my research project, and I went to the student health center, walked up to the doctor, and I was like, I need erectile dysfunction medication. So she wrote me an actual prescription to me with my name on it. And I drove over to the pharmacy and slapped it down on the counter, and he went, okay. I mean, by then they're used to students coming over and doing that. So I spent an entire semester in the dark with a red light on, watching mice, hoping they'd have sex, basically, for months. And so the other reason I love this topic is because it makes every one of you squirm. And I have zero problem with any of the language in this lesson. Zero. Not only did I have my mice for a whole month that I sat there and noted whether the female mice were not receptive and they were literally standing on their hind legs and boxing the male mice with their little hands, or whether they were being receptive, where they assume a position called lordosis, where they arch their back and stick their rear end up like, okay, buddy, come on. So I was looking for that. I just looked for lordosis for months. Jason actually thought lordosis was a funny word. He said it probably 50 times that semester. So I love it, and I'm not afraid of it. And also for 4 years in college, I was on the student health advisory board, and I was the sex ed girl. So I was the one that did all the sex ed classes, not just for the women at my college, but we went to Virginia Tech and I had about 60 male freshmen. That was the most fun ever. So I have no problem with any of it. So reproductive system, Miss Danny's favorite, saving it for nearly last. So how are hormones related? Okay, so some of these you saw just a minute ago in the other chart. So you've got certain hormones that are going to be related to your reproductive system that are produced in reproductive organs, and others that are not. So pituitary, hypothalamus, and then you've got testes and things like that are involved. But also you have this, like corpus luteum. This is actually produced by the egg, not the ovary, but by the egg. And it's pretty amazing. And these follicle stimulating, like FSH, FSH comes from the pituitary. This is what causes ovulation. So it's interesting because they're all very interrelated. So let's start with the male reproductive system. Awesome. Look at this guy. All right. So let me bring this down here. Male reproductive system. So you get money for candy when you say the words, when we get to the different body parts of the anatomy. Remember? Look at all the money. Candy at the door. All right. So here you go. My favorite. So you got 2 of these, and these are these are what produce sperm and sex hormones. They are equivalent to ovaries in the female. What are they? What goes here? Bailey. I mean, sorry, did it again. Piper. I keep doing that because Bailey used to sit there. Piper, yes. Testes. Piper is great. And see, like, Piper's got no problem. She'll just spit out the word. I love it. All right, so then you have where your sperm matures. So what we have our testes. You saw them get circled, right? This one's here. Okay, this one isn't like mutated. It's kind of cut in half and spread out for the purposes of diagramming. It isn't like this naturally. Thank goodness. This dude would be in the hospital in pain. So your sperm is going to be produced in here. Then it's going to go somewhere else for maturation. These are coiled ducts. You know it?
Epididymis.
Epididymis is the word. That is right, Michael. All right. The epididymis. Do you remember in your pigs, if you had male pigs, you look for an epididymis?
No.
It's that little curly coily.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah.
this thing right here, right? My favorite was when Claire came over and said, I can't find the epidemis. And I was like, you've been reading the Bible a lot because it sounded so much like Nicodemus. She went like Nicodemus was what was in her head. And she said epidemis. Epididymis, which I still can't spell without spell check, but I love the word. So next, you've got a tube for mature sperm. They're going to travel from the epididymis, this little curly spot here, this is it right here on the outside, to up into the ejaculatory duct. So what's the tube called? Anybody know? It's actually two words.
Something.
James.
That's-
Yes, vas deferens. Okay, so
What is that like a root from some Greek word?
I'm sure it is. And the male anatomy has such nice sounding words and the female anatomy words are like, ugh. So I don't know why that is, but hey, probably because some male named them. So if who's ever heard the term vasectomy? Anybody heard the term vasectomy before? Okay, so vasectomy is a male sterilization process. And they go in and they take this little tube and they cut it, they sever it, and they like either cauterize or put little clips on the ends, both sides. That means your sperm is constantly being produced, right? But it can't get past wherever the little tube ends. So it'll just sort of, it just sort of dies and deteriorates and more is made. It's still being produced, but it can't get out now. So all of the other ejaculatory fluids will get out, but no sperm is in it. That's what a vasectomy is. All right, so what conducts the sperm to the penis? Anybody know this one? All right, this one is your ejaculatory duct. So we're looking right here, these little guys. Two little muscular deals trying to get, you got to go all the way from down in here and they're going to hang out in here for a while. So here's something else to think. Shh, guys, quit chatting, seriously. In the vas deferens, sperm will hang out in there for a while before it's either ejaculated or it dies. So even if you have a vasectomy, there's still some in here. So there's a waiting period before you're sterile, right? You got to get it out and then you'll be sterile. So this one should be easy. What's the dual purpose duct for semen and urine?
Oh, the
Urethra. Very good, Cole. So here's the thing. Women have two separate exits or entrances for sexual intercourse and reception of sperm and urine. Two completely different ducts, right? Or tubes, however you want to think about it. Men share one. So there's actually a system involved so that sperm or semen and urine do not come out at the same time. Like you can't do that. It's one or the other. But it's interesting that it's a shared duct. So this is external. This is an easy one, y'all. This is the sexual organ for stimulation and intercourse. This is where your semen is expelled. It has two parts called a shaft and a gland. Everybody knows this? What is it? It's your penis. Thank you, Cole. All right, so I love it, y'all. They're spitting out the words. So it has two sections, shaft and then glans is the top section, right? So showing you at the top these two differences because unless you have seen a lot of penises, you may not know one from the other. So this is an uncircumcised penis. This is a circumcised penis. At the end of the glans foreskin, this stuff here is naturally there when you're born, and it's a loose skin, and during erection it sucks backwards and you don't see it anymore. It becomes just part of the whole process. But the circumcised penis looks like this, and this is basically a voluntary minor surgical process that some parents choose and some adult men choose. Then there are also some adult men who've had this done and want to go back to this, and that's a whole nother topic. So that's the whole thing. Accessory glands. So this is a gland that is going to secrete fructose and prostaglandin. Anybody want to know what that one is?
No.
Seminal vesicle. So that's this guy here. So sucrose is important because, fructose, whatever. Fructose is a sugar, and it's important because it helps provide nutrients for the sperm once they're expelled, right? They're out. It's part of the semen liquid that helps keep them going. There's all kinds of stuff within semen that either helps feed them, helps protect them, helps propel them. Prostaglandin in this case. the prostaglandin that is secreted specifically works on part of the female reproductive system to help contraction. So when we get to cervix, it actually works on the cervix and it helps the cervix contract. They've done really, really wild, like internal, I don't even know how to get these cameras in there, but the cervix will actually kind of dip more so that it's able to pick up more sperm. So that's the purpose of the prostaglandin. It also helps kind of soften and change the texture of the cervix. Pretty fascinating. So buffer, you guys remember what a buffer is?
Something that doesn't do.
Sorta.
It's like a washer.
No. So a buffer is a substance that keeps a neutral pH. So the pH of the female reproductive tract and the pH of semen are not necessarily the same, but this helps kind of neutralize, because the female reproductive tract is typically acidic and that actually kills a lot of sperm. So that's your prostate. And that's this guy right here. This is the one that you hear about a lot in November, right? You get the whole prostate cancer is November, right? Because breast cancer is October and now prostate cancer is November. The buildings light up blue and everybody grows a beard. And it's Movember. I don't know why, but that's the thing. I don't know. So then we have the last one here. This one secretes mucus and whatnot. So this is actually your bulbourethral gland. It's this little guy right there. Yeah. I didn't get the and. I know. So
why there's just
what?
and at the end.
So let's go into female reproductive system. So interestingly, the male reproductive system seems to be more complex on the inside, and the female reproductive system is a little more complex on the outside. So when we're looking at female reproductive system, I don't think that says anything more than female reproductive. We can leave it up there. Okay, so we got two of these. This is where oocytes, which are eggs, are produced and matured, and where your sex hormones are produced, like estrogen, progesterone. And these are actually analogous to testes. What are these? Piper. Ovaries. Piper says ovaries. Okay, cool. Piper is right. Where's Piper's pile? All right. So interestingly, when you look at the ovaries, you see this little fringy thing right here. Keep that in mind. We're going to talk about it in just a second.
Okay.
So these can also be called oviducts. I think they were in your pig and in something else we did, fish or something. And these connect the uterus to the ovary. So that's this thing here and the one on the opposite side. Anybody want to know it? Anybody know?
The tube.
What's the tube called?
I know.
You know?
Fallopian.
Yes. And this is where fertilization takes place. Now, here's a story that's going to help you remember that one. So has anybody ever seen the movie Look Who's Talking? It's like an early 90s, or actually it's kind of like a mid 90s movie. It had John Travolta in it, I think. Anyway, basically it was this little baby, and like they gave the baby a voice, like an internal voice. So everything that was going on, the baby had an opinion or whatever. But at the very beginning, there's this like opening credits. You see what looks like the inside of a female reproductive tract, and these little sperm are swimming through it. You know, they're trying to get to the egg. It's this whole opening scene. And I was at this movie with my friend Tony Solano, who's a Filipino guy. Now this matters, okay? So we're sitting there, my best friend Tony and I, we're watching this, and we're like, oh, I'm thinking this is great graphics. This is pretty cool. I like this. And Tony goes, it's a vagina. So, which Jason does not sound like Tony. So, yeah, it's a vagina. And I said, no, it's not, stupid. It's a fallopian tube. And he said, Filipino tube. So that became the thing. And I've always told that story because people remember fallopian tube, the Filipino tube. I was looking at him, I'm like, you're such an idiot. He's the nicest guy. His daughter and I share the same birthday, but he cracked me up with that. So these are fallopian tubes. Now, right here, these little fingery things, they're called fimbriae. They actually kind of look almost like a duster or something. They're very feathery. They're like little fingers. The ovary has a ligament right here that attaches it to the uterus. It doesn't actually, it's not attached to the fallopian tube. There's a space. And those little guys are like little fingers. And when the egg comes out, they actually grab it. So that's how it works. So the ovary, when it produces an egg, it produces it in what they call, it's actually a cyst. It's a little fluid-filled sac. And as that oocyte matures, the egg gets bigger, the sac gets bigger, and it's kind of on the outside of the ovary. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it goes pop. And when it pops, it kind of floats towards them, and they go and pull it right in. And it's really kind of cool. Actually, some women who are, if it's a particularly big cyst, or if you're just particularly in the, doing nothing at the time, you can actually feel it pop, and you're like, ah, that was weird. And ovaries will produce an egg every menstrual cycle, but they rotate. The left one, the next month, the right one, then the left one, then the right one. So this one everybody should know. Somebody tell me. Chamber for embryonic growth and development. It has an endometrium, which is the inner lining, and a myometrium, which is the muscles around it. So Cole, it's the uterus. All right, so we're in the easy words right now. These are all the easy words.
I'm curious now.
Yep.
Not that there was a sentence you'd ever need to use this, but like if you're talking about plural, is it uteri or uterus?
It is uteri.
Uteri.
Yep. And yes, you would need to use that if you're speaking about marsupials in particular,
Right.
because they have multiple uteri.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I know.
There is-
So your myometrium here, these are your muscles. Okay. The uterus is pretty small. It doesn't feel small sometimes, but it's actually very small. It's like your stomach is the size of your fist, roughly. Your uterus is smaller than that. And it's probably, when it's not a non-pregnant uterus, it's probably like this big. It's itty bitty. Sometimes it like, when your stomach hurts, it feels huge. Yeah, same kind of deal. So anyway, this endometrium here, this is a lining that develops inside the uterus. And as part of the menstrual cycle, it will thicken over time because it is trying to be a big cushy blanket to catch that egg, that fertilized egg. Now you have a zygote. Remember, fertilized in the fallopian tube, right? So it's making its way through. It needs a big cushy thing to catch it. If there's not enough endometrium in there, it's not going to get mushed down, and it wants to embed into the side of that endometrium in the uterus. If that happens, that's pregnancy, because you've had conception and now you have actual embedding of it within the uterus. That's pregnancy. If that doesn't happen, that endometrium will shed out and come out through the vagina, and that is your menstrual period. So the blood that everybody talks about really is just endometrial lining. Yes, it's blood because that's what it's made of, but it's not like your uterus is bleeding. It's a different thing, right? So what do you think here is going to secrete mucus, enhance sperm mobility, and help prevent embryonic infection? Anybody want to guess this last bit? Okay, so this is cervix. That's this right here. All right, sometimes they call it the neck of the uterus or whatever. It's this little funnels down. Now, it secretes mucus that helps enhance sperm mobility into the uterus. That mucus changes, the type of mucus changes throughout the cycle. During the fertile period, when ovulation has occurred, that mucus will become thinner, stretchier. They often refer to it like looking like an egg white. And it is very receptive to sperm at that point. It's like, come on in, time to party. Let's get this done. We're trying to make babies. Even if you're not trying to make babies, that's all your body's trying to do. And at other points during the cycle, it will be like more, I don't know, cloudy and not so stretchy. But it's kind of always there. In pregnancy, it forms a plug in the uterus, like almost like a cork stuck in a wine bottle. And it forms that plug and it keeps all the outside stuff out, because you don't want stuff from the outside getting in where you've got an embryo developing or a fetus developing. And that's one of the first signs of labor, because your cervix will start to dilate and get bigger. And as it gets bigger, sooner or later, that little plug will fall out. And that's sometimes people can tell they're about to go into labor because the little plug has come out. They're like, oh, ew, this is new. I haven't seen one of these before, or I've seen these many times, depending on how many times you've been pregnant. So now we have internal and external. What is the internal and external organ for intercourse and childbirth? Easy one. Easy one.
You said it 4 times.
Easy one.
It's the vagina.
Thank you, Michael. It's the vagina. Okay, yeah, you gotta have it. All right, so now we have external and internal pictures. These are fun, right? Everybody goes, oh my gosh, y'all are slinking back thinking she's nuts. Can't believe she showed us this. Oh, but you do have a test coming up and you're going to want to remember these things. Okay. So Bailey's going to die. So is Piper. So is Alex. So in that case, it would be here and here. So it's both internal and external. Now you have And internal and external, this one is external, sorry, sensitive to sexual stimulation. I'll say that one for you. That's clitoris. Some people are going to go clitoris. I think that's weird. That's located up at the top. Okay, yeah.
Ford chorus, people say.
Kind of. Well, they say clitoris, but anyway, if you watch embryonic development, the same tissues that become a penis become a clitoris. And the reason for that is those are all the stimulation tissues where all the nerves are. Obviously, a penis needs to be stimulated for intercourse. A clitoris helps in stimulation for intercourse. Doesn't obviously have to be. However, on the male side, it has to be. So it's a little different. So you got these external rounded folds of skin and adipose. Adipose means fat. And they're part of external female genitalia. Anybody know what those are? No. Okay. So these are
Yeah, that's right.
labia majora are the outside, the bigger ones. And then I'll give you these, your labia minora are the smaller ones. So some people refer to them as like vaginal lips, but it's labia majora, labia minora. Minora are on the inside, the majora are bigger, they're on the outside. And then there's this fat pad around both sides. And this one is, anybody? Least attractive word of all, this is vulva. Okay, these are on the outside. Now, all the time, people will say something like, maybe there'll be a naked image somewhere and they'll be like, I saw a vagina. No, most of the time it's not what you're seeing. This is what you're seeing. That's the external part, is you're seeing vulva. You have to be like looking or getting in weird positions to actually see a vagina, right? So these are the external female organs. Now, sperm and egg, come on down. Production. So for every immature egg, y'all, everybody's taking a breath now. Feel a little better? Pictures are gone. Okay, so for every immature sperm, 4 mature sperm are going to be produced. For every immature egg, 1 mature egg is going to be produced. So it's a different process. So we talk about meiosis. Remember, we talked about creating, 4 from 1, basically. And these are all genetically different. So you get 4 sperm, but only get 1 egg. And not all these eggs are ever going to be ovulated. So sperm consists of, you guys know this, a head with DNA, a little midsection with your mitochondria, and then the flagellum, right? That's how they swim, that's how they move. And eggs have cytoplasm and organelles needed once fertilized. Now, your egg is your biggest cell that the human body produces. It's good size. And only 1 little sperm is gonna be able to get to it, which is kind of wild. So when you look at how a menstrual cycle works, oh, come on, trying to grab this thing and get it. I hate this thing. Okay, should be smaller. So a menstrual cycle, yes.
Somebody said something in chat.
Oh, who said? Oh, you're right, it popped up. And I'm the weird one thinking, no, Shannon, you're my girl. All right, so so anyway, so you've got this roughly 28-day cycle, right, that we call the menstrual cycle. It begins technically with the first day of menstruation. Menstruation is period, menstruation. Now, I'm going to tell you all this because I'm going to save you some future embarrassment, especially for the gentlemen in this room. So when I was like 12 or 13, the junior high school boys that we hung out with had zero understanding of this. And we had to explain stuff to them. And they were like, we thought you just kind of went to the toilet and peed out blood. And I'm like, okay, if that was the case, then why are there products all over the store for this? Like, there are pads and tampons and things. Like, what do you think those are for? I don't know. Okay, so they're not with it. So this is when the endometrium is going to be shed. Okay, and as it's shed, and it's shed because there was no fertilized egg. This is the menstruation period. This is the bleeding days, right? And this is when you are starting to develop a new follicle. These follicles are like the cysts that the egg is going to pop out of. And these are hormone levels. You can see how the hormone levels change. So this follicular phase, this is when your follicle is developing, and then you get ovulation. Look how small ovulation is compared to the rest of this. This is not a long period because it only takes it's like 24 hours. And this little egg is going to pop out of there. And then you're going to get the follicle left here, not really the egg, but the follicle left that's going to start producing some of these other hormones. And it'll shrink back up if it's not used, and it'll go away, and another follicle will start to develop. Now you see you've got this cycle goes round and round and round. They are angry with me out there because I did not put new bird seed. Look, they're mad. They'll get over it. So you have this menstruation period, which lasts roughly 7 days, 3 to 7, depending on the person. Your follicular phase, your ovulation. Now, ovulation, like I said, is like a 1-day process, but it can happen within a range. I'm going to look at that again in a second. And then you have this luteal phase where you're waiting for things to kind of make their way back to where they were. So if you assume it to be a 28-day cycle, this is roughly how it will look. That is the average 28-day. Not everybody is 28-day. Some are less, some are more. Some are not regular, and they're just kind of different or within a certain range all the time. It's kind of cool. They have apps and everything now for this. Did not have that when I was a kid. So your corpus luteum right here, this is made from the follicle, and it starts to form as soon as the mature egg pops out of the follicle. Pretty cool. And the hormones secreted by it are essential for conception. If this guy isn't here, there is no conception. It's secreting all the important hormones. And it's what keeps a pregnancy lasting. That's progesterone. Okay, so like certain types of birth control, like hormonal birth control, like pills and whatnot, will include a certain level of progesterone. And basically what it does is it sort of convinces the body that there's a pregnancy there, so don't ovulate again. So that's how that works. It gives just enough progesterone that the body thinks, oh, we've had conception occur. We don't need to make any more eggs for a while. No more ovulating for a while. So that's how like chemical birth control works, hormonal. This is the stuff that everybody needs to really remember. This is important, okay? Rest of your life, important, everybody in this room. So these are the days in here in which conception can occur. These are the days in which ovulation can occur. Anywhere in here. So like a 1-day period, right? 1 day, but it's going to happen somewhere within this range because not everybody is the same. There are ways to target it, including basal body temperature, cervical mucus checking, hormone. You can do like certain hormonal checks with little home kits. There's ways to tell when ovulation occurs. But if you're not actively doing that, or if it's not exactly the same every month, then you don't know which one of these days is your lucky or maybe unlucky, depending on how you're feeling, your lucky day. So if ovulation is going to last about 24 hours, and that egg, if it's not fertilized, is going to die within 12 to 24 hours, and looking at this conception range here, which is going to survive longer, sperm or eggs? Look here and here, which is going to survive longer? Yeah, say it. Yeah, sperm. Why? Can you tell? Or were you just guessing? Okay, so here's why. Sperm can live like 2 days, 3 days sometimes. They take a while before they die out. So if intercourse occurs here.
So we have before and then ovulation.
So if intercourse occurs here and ovulation occurs here, you can still have conception. Or the other way around. If ovulation occurs here and intercourse occurs here, you can still, in this range, somewhere in here, depending, you can still have conception. It depends, because that egg's only got a 24-hour period, but that sperm can last longer. It can live in the female reproductive tract for a good couple days. So if you ovulate somewhere, like intercourse is here, ovulation is here, you can still have conception. The other way around too. Ovulate here and intercourse like a day later, you can still have conception. So that's why you don't know, right? Anywhere in here is possible. And that's super important to remember. So here we go with these fun things. So what's this? What's this? I love it. Come down here. You're in my way. Oh, don't come down here. I hate this thing. So fertilization, embryonic development. This is cool stuff. Come on, where's my words? So gamete formation. Y'all know what gametes are. We've been through this. So this is your super fascinating thing. Female babies are born with about 1 million eggs. They're not mature eggs, but they're born with about 1 million eggs. That's pretty cool. Now, by the time of puberty, only about 3,000 of them or 300,000 of them are going to remain. And over time, over her reproductive lifetime, 300 to 400 of those will get ovulated. So you start with 1 million, 300 to 400 are going to get ovulated. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, males, on average, don't start even producing sperm until they're between 12 and 15 years old, whereas female babies are born with all their gametes. Kind of interesting. And if you have a fertile male human, on average, teaspoon of semen from ejaculation is going to contain about 100 million sperm, which are all after one egg. 100 million sperm chasing down one egg. It's a lot. And they don't all make it. So fertilization. I'm supposed to take this off this thing. Yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm gonna make it so it doesn't do that. What? Y'all are goofy. I don't want it to ruin it for me. Hang on, hang on. There we go. All right. So if I go back here, bum. All right. So bum. So when you get your sperm and egg together, what do you call it? Oh, sorry, I went too fast. Yep. So that's 2 haploid cells. They become 1 diploid cell. Ta-da, here they are. Now, somebody asked earlier, in the earlier class, well, if you only got 1 egg and 1 sperm, how do you get twins? Well, if you ovulate more than 1 egg, you can get fraternal twins. And obviously, if you ovulate an egg that divides once it's been fertilized into 2, that's how you get identical twins. So like Bailey and Alex here are fraternal twins, right? So that means you had 2 eggs ovulated and they both worked. Hey, way to go. Now, women who do fertility, Bailey's saying no, or you what? No, or you just can't believe I'm saying it. What? It was IVF. Okay, so that's where I was going next. Even cooler. So IVF, in that case, that's in vitro. So that's when women do fertility treatments, they give them a lot of particular hormones that cause ovulation. They ovulate a lot. They collect a lot of eggs. They do the fertilization outside the body with the sperm that the woman wants. Sometimes it's the father, sometimes it's a donor. And then they implant they try to implant them. They put them back into the uterus in hopes that they will be implanted. And sometimes you get 1 baby, sometimes you get a lot of babies. It depends. In the late 90s, early 2000s, they started reducing the number of fertilized eggs that they would implant because they were ending up with things like, everybody heard of Octomom? Octomom had 8 babies. That's a litter. That's not what human beings do. Like at most, like you see twins, you see triplets, maybe you see quadruplets, but octuplets, yeah, triplets, but octuplets is a lot. And that's not what we're supposed to do. And so she chose to have all 8. So what they do now with, if they have a whole bunch of fertilized embryos, there are options for what you can do with those fertilized embryos. You can, because they won't implant them all, because obviously that's that you'll end up with Octomom. So they select the healthiest of them, and those are the ones they choose to try and implant. The others, they either freeze cryogenically for later use, or you can donate them to other families, or they can also just let them die and degrade. Yeah.
I was going back a little. So is there a set number of eggs that females have? So they start with 1 million, and by the time they're puberty, it's 300,000 or whatever?
Yeah.
So is menopause when there's no more?
It's not when there's no more necessarily. It's when ovulation stops.
Okay.
It just stops because there's no purpose for it
But
anymore.
if you've already lost, 700,000 by the time you hit puberty, by the time you're like 50, you're probably out.
No, there's a lot. I mean, you have 300,000. You're not going to go through all 300,000. This 300 to 400 these are just the ones that happen to mature during reproductive lifetime. So somewhere between like 12 and 50. Yeah. So implantation. What does the zygote burrow into as a blastocyst? To the uterus, into the endometrium, right? All right. And then you're going to get gastrulation, which we've talked about, ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. That all happens. You get neurulation or formation of that neural plate, which we talked about back when we were doing all the animal embryology. It's all the same thing. And then you get development. So you've got this zygote, which is now an embryo at 8 weeks. We have a fetus. So now it's gone from zygote to embryo to fetus. Now, 6 to 7 months of development, you get tissues and cells and then organs. Anybody know the length of a typical pregnancy? Do you know?
I'm guessing because it's 9 months and around 4 weeks, 2 months, somewhere around 36 to 40.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, 40 is what they say. Where's all this British money in here? 40 is what they say. Now, here's the interesting thing. Because most people cannot say exactly when they ovulated and therefore exactly when they conceived, they use the first day of a menstrual cycle to track. So if you go a full cycle and you don't menstruate when you're expecting to, and it's about 2 weeks have gone by, you're like, okay, now what? That's usually around the time people can get a positive pregnancy test. And they will say that is 6 weeks pregnant, but really it's 4, because those first 2 weeks of the menstrual cycle from the beginning of menstruation to ovulation are counted in the typical weeks of a pregnancy, because you can't pinpoint it along the way. So they'll say 4 weeks pregnant, they'll call it 6. Now, interesting fact about this, 40 weeks. This is an average. You can go earlier, you can go later. However, in this nation, we tend to look at this 40, and a lot of obstetricians will say, are you tired of being pregnant? You hit 40 weeks, you want to induce? Or you're 41 weeks, we have to induce you now. We have to induce labor, give you hormones and make you go into labor, or do a C-section if you were planning on one anyway, for whatever reason. Evidence shows, if you do evidence-based medicine, actually, and a lot of what our medical practitioners in this country practice, especially in obstetrics, is defensive medicine. Obstetrics has the largest malpractice risk of any of the other specialties, because they're caring for 2 patients at one time, and there's obviously stuff can go wrong. So they practice a lot of defensive medicine. Statistics show, though, if you leave it alone, you don't do anything, about half of women will deliver before 40 weeks, usually somewhere between 36 and 40. The other half will not deliver until after 40 weeks. So if you hit 40 weeks and they go, oh, we need to induce you, you've hit 40 weeks, or 41 weeks, we need to induce you, half of women will deliver after 40 weeks. So do your homework on that if you're ever in that position, because if 50% of people are going to deliver naturally after 40 weeks, what's the rush to induce a delivery at 40 weeks? There are reasons to not let it go past like 42, 43. There are good reasons for that, but definitely something to watch. All right, so this is a fertilization video. It looks a little bit like look who's talking at the beginning, but it's really, really good. I really like this one. And it seems to do this to me again. We're gonna back it up. All right. Oh, come on, back it up. Oh, shoot, do your thing. It's not wanting me to touch it. There we go. There we go. It's loading and it's being weird all the way back to the beginning. There we go, finally.
Fertilization is the epic story of a
Semen.
single sperm facing incredible odds to unite with an egg to form a new human life. It is the story of
Y'all.
hormones. During sexual intercourse, about 300 million sperm enter the vagina. Soon afterward, millions of them will either flow out of the vagina or die in its acidic environment. However, many survive because of the protective elements provided in the fluids surrounding them. Next, the sperm must pass through the cervix, an opening into the uterus. Usually, it remains tightly closed, but here the cervix is open for a few days while the woman ovulates. The sperm swim through the cervical mucus, which is thinned to a more watery consistency for easier passage. Once inside the cervix, the sperm continues swimming toward the uterus, though millions will die trying to make it through the mucus. Some sperm remain behind, caught in the folds of the cervix, but they may later continue the journey as a backup to the first group. Inside the uterus, muscular uterine contractions assist the sperm on their journey toward the egg. However, resident cells from the woman's immune system, mistaking the sperm for foreign invaders, destroy thousands more. Next, half the sperm head for the empty fallopian tube, while the other half swim toward the tube containing the unfertilized egg. Now, only a few thousand remain. Inside the fallopian tube, tiny cilia push the egg toward the uterus. To continue, the sperm must surge against this reach the egg. Some sperm get trapped in the cilia and die. During this part of the journey, chemicals in the reproductive tract cause the membranes covering the heads of the sperm to change. As a result, the sperm become hyperactive, swimming harder and faster toward their destination.
Go, 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 go. Look at him go.
At long last, the sperm reach the egg. Only a few dozen of the original 300 million sperm remain. The egg is covered with a layer of cells called the corona radiata. The sperm must push through this layer to reach the outer layer of the egg, the zona pellucida. When sperm reach the zona pellucida, they attach to specialized sperm receptors on the surface, which triggers their acrosomes to release digestive enzymes, enabling the sperm to burrow into the layer. Inside the zona pellucida is a narrow, fluid-filled space just outside the egg cell membrane. The first sperm to make contact will fertilize the egg. After a perilous journey and against incredible odds, a single sperm attaches to the egg cell membrane. Within a few minutes, their outer membranes fuse and the egg pulls the sperm inside. This event causes changes in the egg membrane that prevent other sperm from attaching to it. Next, the egg releases chemicals that push other sperm away from the egg and create an impenetrable fertilization membrane. As the reaction spreads outward, the zona pellucida hardens, trapping any sperm unlucky enough to be caught inside. Outside the egg, sperm are no longer able to attach to the zona pellucida.
Poor guys.
Meanwhile, inside the egg, the tightly packed male genetic material spreads out. A new membrane forms around the genetic material, creating the male pronucleus. Inside, the genetic material reforms into 23 chromosomes. The female genetic material, awakened by the fusion of the sperm with the egg, finishes dividing, resulting in the female pronucleus, which also contains 23 chromosomes. As the male and female pronuclei form, spiderweb-like threads called microtubules pull them toward each other. The two sets of chromosomes join together, completing the process of fertilization. At this moment, a unique genetic code arises, instantly determining gender, hair color, eye color, and hundreds of other characteristics.
Yep. That's the end of it anyway.
This new single
Nearly.
cell, the zygote, is the beginning of a new human being. And now the cilia in the fallopian tube gently sweep the zygote toward the uterus, where he or she will implant in a rich uterine loam, growing and maturing for the next 9 months until ready for birth.
So you mean to tell me, in the hundreds of thousands of years of human existence, there's never been a tie?
No, doesn't work. There's a second when one of those little sperm heads comes through, and it's just like chemical reaction, right? It is a chemical reaction.
Who never just at the same time?
Never.
That's hard to believe.
Isn't that incredible though? I mean, that's a chemical reaction that's like, boom. Has to be something slightly ahead of the other. So, no, it'll be okay. So a birth. This is fun. All right. So there's this book.
What is wrong with you?
There's this book right here. There's this book right here. It's called The Story of Life. And this picture goes around all the time. Like I'm in a Facebook group called
It's not a children's book, is it?
no. It's called Science. Oh no, it's called Science Diagrams That Look Like S Posts. And it's a great, this kind of thing shows up all the time because it's just hilarious. But this book writes like it's serious and it's not, it's hilarious. I mean, like catching the egg.
Is that Drake on?
No, it's not Drake, but like there's twins. Like, I mean, it's just, it's a hilarious book. Anyway, so after seeing this thing so many times, like here's the baby, like there's the baby. And some of these are funny. Like, so I had to get it because I've seen it so many times. I like this one with the legs in particular. So this one, this lady with the arms, it lives right here. If anybody cares to, next to my crap taxidermy, which is also one of my favorites. Yeah, so this is a great one. It says after 30 weeks of being pregnant, which is not quite accurate, the baby is now fully formed inside of the lady's body, and it will soon be time for the birthing. I love the way the baby is sitting into, I mean, the arm.
Don't think that's correct
But
grammar.
sitting-
It's just, yeah.
No, I know, none of it. The whole book's full of it.
It's just, yeah.
So actually, this is how birth occurs in 3 stages. So yet stage 1, and this is when your contractions occur and your cervix dilates. Remember, the cervix was that little, the little neck at the bottom of the uterus. And if you look, remember in the video, it was sealed very tightly, they said, and it looked almost like a donut, right? It was really tightly packed. It was a hole, and it had all these like sort of angles coming in, like it was packed super tight. If a woman has already delivered a baby vaginally, that cervix is a different shape. It's actually kind of flat like that. It makes like a line
Is that
because it's been stretched out.
that's a leg and that's a stomach, right? Just lying down.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're gonna get there. So this is interesting. So you've got your, I want you to imagine for a second that you have, I should have brought this, but imagine for a second that you have an apple and it's stuffed inside of like a little short ankle sock, okay? And you stuffed it in there all the way in. All right, so the open part of your sock on the opposite end of the apple, that's gonna be like your cervix linking up to your vagina. If you squeeze the sock at the top, it would pull the sock up around the apple a little more. And every time you squeeze it would pull it up more. That's how the cervix goes from being long and muscular to being thin, wider, and opening up. It's pulling from the top because the contractions are happening up here.
Like trying to get a hoodie string through the hoodie to like push it.
No, not quite like that. But it's gonna pull. It actually pulls the cervix open. And you're gonna start with about 1 centimeter and you end up with it being about 10 centimeters. So something to think about here when you're thinking about birth and reproductive systems and whatever. And I heard somebody put it with fruit terms once, but obviously your vagina, which is you're both in for reproduction and you're out for reproduction, right? Has to be able to accommodate 2 very different things. It has to be able to accommodate a penis in order to get sperm, but it also has to be able to accommodate a baby in the other direction. And there's a big, I'm sorry, but there's a big size difference between a penis and a baby. So somebody once termed it as like, it has to go from the size of a lemon to the size of a watermelon. It's not quite watermelon, but still. So that is an extraordinarily elastic, stretchy, tough organ. It can go through a lot. So, there's always those jokes about men and their testes, oh, you got balls, to be tough. Those things. I'm like, well, the vagina does a whole lot more than testicles, because for real, it can accommodate, whole baby head. That's amazing. And shoulders. That's really amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah,
So,
the balls are what they make the testosterone. So
Yeah.
it adds up with the-
yeah, but yeah.
It's like what did you want to do?
But if you get, you're all, oh, they're so sensitive, but look at this. So anyway, this is stage 1 is your cervical dilation, uterine contractions, pull your cervix open. It's called thinning or refacing. Now I have a question about this blue body. I thought, whoop, there it goes. I kind of thought that, yeah, I'm wondering if it was her. Sorry, it came up, accidentally clicked. Shoot, I did it again. Why did I do that? Go back. Go back.
You played past it, back and
Go
forth.
back, go back. Well, I want to go back. Go back. There we no.
Grab his-
That. So yeah, it's the blue body that confused me, and I instantly thought of these Avatar guys, because for real, why did they make this model blue?
That movie was so bad.
I agree.
It's a good
I haven't
movie.
seen
I thought it was visually appealing, but terrible plot wise. But why blue? What is the point?
And then
So-
why isn't the baby blue too?
Yeah, I
There's so many
I'm not gonna lie, I think the
questions.
shoulders would be the hardest.
And why did they choose
So
to
it
make
can
the
be.
mother and father?
don't know. So stage 2 is emergence of the baby. Now, if you look in this diagram, this baby is coming out in what is the sort of standard, most common and easiest way. So in this case, you got your baby head first, that means vertex, and you got your baby face down, which is anterior. By face down, I mean looking at the tailbone. See how the baby's looking at the tailbone? So when contractions start, it will actually turn the baby and it comes that direction, face down, head first. Head first is great because the shape of the head will dilate the cervix nicely. If you're not head first, like if you're butt first or something, it just doesn't sit in there as well and it doesn't help stretch as well. So when you're coming out this way, this is the easiest way. And then what happens is, there's sort of like a thing where the shoulders don't come out like this, they sort of come out like that, if that helps, at an angle. So all of this, all these contractions start oxytocin moving through the body, and that's milk production to the point where you can actually, the baby can come out and you can pop the baby on the mother's breast and the instinct to suckle will come in and that baby will suckle immediately. The initial milk is called colostrum. It lasts just a couple days. Sometimes they call it liquid gold. It is golden in color and it does not look like the rest of breast milk. It only lasts a few days, but it is perfect newborn food, which is, so it's really kind of cool. So your last stage is your placenta has to be delivered. So this is another thing. This is the only organ that a human being will develop once that human being is developed and mature. It's an organ that you build. You actually build it, and it's an organ that secretes hormones. So it's an endocrine organ, but it's also, you know, blood supply, vascular system. It's a complex little organ, and that's why first trimester pregnancy, a lot of moms will be really tired because building an organ is hard work. I mean, think about it. It took 9 months to build all your organs. She's got to build one in 3, you know, before it's, I mean, immediately it starts, but by 3 months, it's pretty, you know, big and well established. So the placenta is delivered last. Usually in American medicine, the doctor will kind of give it a pull and it'll just kind of come out. They'll plop it down in one of those emesis basins, or not in one of the big basins, like a square one like those. And some people do weird stuff with them, like they make pills out of them. They freeze dry them. Some people go plant them under trees. Some people are like medical waste, go away. I did ask to feel mine. You know the membrane on the outside of sausage? It's kind of like that. It's like a, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's a, obviously some kind of fibrous membrane. So it's very sturdy and it's so highly vascularized. It's amazing. You can see the part that was attached to the uterus, and then you can see the part, shh, guys, the baby's right in that amniotic sac, right? The baby's inside of a sac inside the uterus where the water is, and you can actually see like both sides of it. It's pretty darn cool. So it detaches from the uterine wall all on its own. Sometimes it needs a little help getting out. It would come out on its own anyway, but what do animals in the wild do with their placentas, do you know? They usually eat them. Yep, that's why some people will freeze dry theirs and make pills out of it, because they're like, well, if wild animals do it, there must be a reason. So these contractions of the uterus that come here actually do help. They control bleeding, and in this case, it's bleeding. It's not like uterine lining being shed. It's not like a menstrual period where you've got endometriosis being shed. It's bleeding. So the contractions that come afterwards will help control bleeding, and it'll stop shortly thereafter. So this is cool. These are different positions that babies can be born in. They all have names. Does anybody know what position they were? You know? You were sunny side up. So yeah, okay. So you were posterior. Now, do you know if you were looking one particular direction or another?
I think I was just looking.
Just look it up. Looking the wrong way. So sunny side up, as James is discussing, is one of these presentations here. That means that instead of the baby's face being turned towards the tailbone, face is turned up. The difference and why that is a tricky delivery, props to your mother, is that when the baby is face down, all of the pressure and the pubic bone being right there causes them to tuck their chin. And this is the part pressing on the cervix and coming out. Whereas if you're sunny side up, you go like this. And now this is the part that's being delivered, so it's much harder. Anybody else know what position they were born in? I was this one. Yeah, I was that one.
You look like it looks like a human pretzel.
It does. That's Frank Breach. That's
Wait.
butt first,
Oh,
holding your
like-
legs. No, like here, like
okay.
folded up like a book, holding your legs, because babies are super flexible, right? So that's Frank Breach. Cole, you were LOP. You started out sunny side up, like James, but Dr. Tate turns you slightly. So LOP is left occiput posterior. The occiput is part of the baby's skull, and they're referring to it being on the left. So that means he came out looking at my right leg.
What do you do if you're that last one? Like, what's the?
This one, footling, that's an emergency. So there are ways to handle it, 2 ways to handle it. One, you put the foot back in, reach up, turn the baby in a different direction, or you do a C-section. That's a real emergency here. Now, actually, I have a cousin who was born footling breech. She was my aunt's second daughter, and they were traveling, and my aunt went into labor in like the middle of nowhere. It was unexpected. It was a little early, and they went to some like podunk hospital because they had no choice. And this was in like 1973, I guess, 4. Yeah, 4. So she was footling breech. Her right leg, I believe it was, popped out first. And the doctor went, snatch. Okay, so not only did he injure my aunt, but he caused nerve damage. He broke my cousin's clavicle, caused nerve damage to her face, caused nerve damage in lots of different places. That's not good. You don't snatch. He snatched.
Is there not a way that you can like maneuver the other leg out and then, because I feel like it'd be thinner than the head.
You could, but the hips are a hard thing. That's why you want a head first if you can get it. That's why the butt is a hard thing. Now, this one here, transverse, where's transverse breech? This one's almost there. So transverse breech, actually, I don't have the picture. Transverse breech is when you have the baby laying in the pelvis like it's a cradle, sideways, okay? There are 2 ways to deal with that. C-section, which is what my best friend did. Her daughter was laying sideways, and they were like, well, we're gonna have to section you. Drew was laying sideways, like a cradle, like this, at 28 weeks. And my doctor did what's called an external cephalic version. Yep, where they take the outside, cover your belly with lots of jelly so you're slippery, get the ultrasound out, and they will grab the baby's butt and head on the outside of the mother's body, feel it, and turn the baby from the out.
Really weird.
It feels very weird, but if they get it right, you will feel whoop, the baby sink right down where it's supposed to go. And it's a very strange feeling. And my doctor, being very old school, people say you don't need a midwife if you have him, super old school, like very old school. He was like, well, I'll deliver your breech, but I'm sure you'd prefer anterior. I'm like, vertex. And I'm like, I would. So, and they usually don't do that until much later in pregnancy, but he does it earlier. And he said, I've been doing it for years. I've never had a problem with it. Like, he said they're smaller, they're easy to move at this stage. I'm like, okay. So flipped him around, and I could actually feel him settle right down into my pelvis where he was supposed to be. Left with a couple bruises, because you got to move the baby hard, but gently at the same time. Like, it's move a little, look with the ultrasound. Move a little, look with the ultrasound. Took about 7 minutes, not long. Pretty cool though. And then there's the C-section. Now this is a standard C-section, where they do this low cut right above the pubic bone, right above the pubic hairline, and it's usually horizontal like this. And they'll take the baby out, typically head first if the baby's like in that position already, or however they need to, and then they'll remove the placenta. I've watched 3 or 4 C-sections when I was in college and doing my rotation. They were pretty cool. If it's an emergency C-section, however, it's a different deal. Or if the baby has some abnormality, it becomes a vertical cut, which is the old school cut they used to do, which goes like 2 or 3 inches below the belly button, straight down. It's a long cut.
Most twins C-section?
Yes, now in the United States, not in other countries necessarily.
If they do, is that possible? They can move around from the outside, even with twins?
I never heard of that one. Usually
Like,
twins
can they move
will,
one and then deliver and move the other, then you two deliver?
I mean, yeah, I could do one at a time, sure. They do all kinds of stuff. I was in the weirdest positions trying to get you to turn around. It was bizarre. At one point, I'm like hands and knees in business. It was not, none of it was what you would call not embarrassing, but it was like, you know, you do what you got to do, right? But yeah, I actually know a lady who, so VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean. I actually know a lady who sees my OB who did a vaginal VBAC, which is almost unheard of. I mean, not a vaginal VBAC. They're all vaginal. She did VBAC with triplets. She had triplets and she VBAC'd them. So he actually did it in the OR in case there was some reason for a crash or something like that. But she delivered triplets vaginally after having had 2 previous C-sections, which a lot of doctors will only section after sectioning. That's not necessarily evidence-based either. That again is a defensive thing. And a lot of people also, like, we learned stuff over time. In the 90s in particular, they were using certain drugs that would induce labor that led to uterine rupture more often. It was all kinds of things. We learned with time. But I was gonna say these emergency ones, my sister-in-law had an emergency C-section because my nephew had an abnormality and he didn't survive. But she has since had 2 C-sections since then with her surviving children. So she has 2 scars, which she says looks like an anchor, and she hates it because she has one here and then one. And this one, the straight down one, is wiggly because it was very emergent. It was like, not let's take our time. So, yep, you can have that as well. So then, this is another really cool one. This shows you like beginning to end from fertilization to basically birth, but it doesn't show you the scary, gross stuff. It's so loud. This one's blurry. It's hard to find a good version of this. But there's no talking. It's just images. So there was a movie that everybody had to watch in high school years ago called The Miracle of Life, which showed kind of all this stuff. And yep, and then when you got to the childbirth scene, it cut from something like this to a woman's vagina with a head coming out, like just cut. And it was the kind of thing where a room full of kids go, like, and they did this for years to kids, poor kids. There was no warning or anything. You can find that online, by the way. So there's your neurulation, right? Yep. You got your spinal development. There's your heart. A lot. Little limb buds appear. Little feet. Aren't they cute? Little hands. Still kind of looks weird at this point, right?
I love the face.
Yeah. They're very cool. See how big the cephalic region is, though, because you've got your brain development, right? Speaking of brain development, there you go. Nervous system. Ooh, a little wiggly dude kicking around. Oh, it's a boy. That one's not. That's your inner ear, right? As they get bigger, they have less and less space to move in. So they get all squashed up in there. And they will do stuff like suck their thumbs in utero. There's great like ultrasound video of that. This is an older one, but it's really cool. It's hard to find one as thorough that's newer and clearer, but he's so chill. Of course, he has no light in there. You can't see anything. I don't know what he's looking at. It's dark. Yeah, there's no light source in there. It's dark as can be.
And there isn't that much of a brain. He's really just stuck.
Well, by this point he is.
Yeah.
When he's smaller, they can move around a fair bit, and they do. See, by this point, they're pretty stuffed. They're big. They're in that sack, and that's, yeah. Yeah, yeah. See, now watch the baby turn, though. See the way the baby's situated? You can watch how the baby will turn to go anterior right there, which is anterior vertex. And then you can watch the shoulders will come kind of sideways. So baby will turn again right there. The doctor can actually grab at the armpits and twist and then pull them right out.
Does the baby do that?
Yeah, just like that. Woohoo! And it's interesting because that last little turn happens, and then once those shoulders are out, it's like, I mean, that's just, whoop, here's the baby, snatch them right out. It's pretty cool. Now, this one I already have on YouTube for you. Don't know why they won't show it. Oh, come here. You can't move this over to make this smaller. Everything's in the way. So this video, what I'm going to show you, they won't let it show through. I have to put it here. But what this is this is a baby born on call. On call, E-N-C-A-U-L. It's a French term. But call is another word for amniotic sac. So if a baby's born on call, it means the sac has not ruptured. So the water has broken. So it's a rare occurrence. I think it can occur vaginally, but it's like ridiculously rare. And it's rare with C-sections too.
Makes it all the way out of the birth canal and it's still in the.
Usually that, yeah. Now, usually that doesn't happen. There can still be a little bit of water like around the baby, but that doesn't really work. But with a C-section, and this is what this is, it's a C-section and the baby's on call. So they actually pull the whole baby out of the uterus, set it like right here on top of the mom's legs, and it's still in the sac. And you can see the baby in the sac moving around, which is very, very cool. And it's not something you get to see often, so it's really neat. Try to get these out of the way here. Yep, does look like a giant bubble. You can see how tough that sac is if they're able to pull it out like that with that much pressure and it didn't break. You see the little guy in there? Head at the top there. Little arms, look, they're poking at him. They're like, hello, are you in there? Look at that. That is just a super rare, look at the face. I mean, that is really, really cool. So you don't often get to see a baby born on call. That's very, very, you see a little tongue coming out and everything.
Still in shrink, oh my gosh.
Shrink wrap, baby. Yep. With a lot of liquid. Everybody in that room is probably like, oh my gosh, you know, because that's very cool.
The hints that the baby originally
Look at, see, they're pointing at his tongue. His tongue keeps sticking out. Look at that. See the little tongue coming out? Yeah. What am I doing in here? So anyway, that is a super cool thing. And I love that because it's just, okay, where's the little?
Oh, they're opening it now?
Yeah, but this thing won't get out of my way. Oh shoot, no! I hate this mess. Back to there. Back to there. What is Bruce Lee, kid? I don't know who that is. Anyway, they're all messing with my video, but yep, they'll break it right there. And there he is. And it's easy to break a sac. Sometimes during labor, the doctor will just go ahead and break the sac because it can help speed things up. And they do that with a little, I think it's called an amnio hook. You ever seen the tools they use? You ever seen the thing you use to like peel an orange? It's got like a little, it's plastic, it has like a little hook on the end. You kind of run it down the orange. That's what it looks like. They just reach up there and they go snatch and that's it. So last slide for you guys, because it's time for Miss Jackie. After the cool on-call birth is there. These are your study topics for your Unit 8 tests. They will, of course, be available in your resources file. But there you go. I'm going to work on, like I said, final exam packets on an airplane ride today. And I need y'all to just give me a little grace this week since I'm going to Virginia. But otherwise, you're good to go. What did we say over here? Whoa, that's interesting. Shannon's loving it. Cool. Wait, I follow a couple that's going through IVF process, said Sydney. And one mom's eggs are fertilized and extracted by a sperm donor and then planted into second mom. Yes, that sometimes happens. That's cool. That's surrogate. That's really, really neat. Really cool.
Asking about that.
Yeah, the woman with the long arms. Have you ever seen this book?
Call.
Yeah.
This is a great book.
No.
There's a famous picture in it that I included in the little thing today. Where's the picture? The picture's so good. Oh, here we go. This one?
This is so sad.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
that is-
My God, yeah.
Isn't that great?
But I've seen all the memes with this.
Right, that's right here. This book.
This is hysterical.
Well, it's really funny. The one about there's a male laying. This one's great.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my line of-
Uh-huh. Love that. It's just hilarious.
I will
to me.
never not see that
Right?
in my brain.
Isn't that
It
great?
forever is
So-
rent free in my
It's
brain.
it's a fun.
It looks
I
like
love
Drake.
that. Yeah, it looks like Drake.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love that one. Nowadays, there are lots of ways to get a lady pregnant. But the most popular way is for a man to lay an egg into the lady's mouth so she can swallow it inside of herself and grow into a baby.
Yes.
See it?
Oh,
See it?
it's so good.
That's-
Oh, you
one
won't
of the best
unsee it.
pictures in the
You
book.
won't unsee it.
This book is outstanding. It's just great.
I legitimately thought that's how it works though.
And you can watch this book of the baby
And
develop.
they gave me
And it
the
shows
plot.
like freaking
They
looking
wouldn't
baby.
spell it out for me,
Yeah,
so I'm like,
yeah,
you
the one
like
with
bring
the
pee,
legs.
like I really
Long,
like.
I know. Oh, there's all crop.
I was
Okay, a little baptism.
Spit blessings, my sweet child.
Oh my gosh.
That's cauldron.
Spit blessings, my sweet child. Just before the baby's first birthday, the local priest will bless the baby in a cauldron of priest spit
My
to
sweet
protect the youngling from bad spirits.
Oh,
His
my
legs are a
God.
little long.
Do you need my iPad for your girls?
Oh, yeah, because Ethan isn't here, right?
No, Ethan's not here. So
Yes.
I will pass that over. Hold on, let me get it on.
Oh, but I didn't even send anything to Ethan. I didn't know he was gonna be absent today.
He's finishing like a zillion exams.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he probably won't be on the call.
Okay, hold on, let me get this over to Jackie real quick.
Weird.
Yeah, hold on, let me get this over to, I've ended this, but it still doesn't end. Will you please end?
I put this together.